All right, everyone. Welcome to NFT Guild Roundtable 5. We're excited to continue the CIP discussion with all these beautiful people. We have a new guild member, Philip, here, and he's going to introduce himself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Philip. I am active in the Cardano community, Catalyst community, for like 2 years or more. I don't even know anymore. I'm a business developer, a technical consultant, playing as a developer proper. You know, I do some DevOps. I set up nodes. I play around with a lot of different things with Cardano, and I've been kindly invited by Felix and by Ana Maria and Raresh to fill out the role of a CIP editor for the guild. So I am very happy and excited. I've been looking at CIPs for some time now. I'm in the CIP Discord, CIP editors Discord. So I went to the last meeting. I've listened a little bit about, you know, they have bi-weekly meetings as well. So I'm interested in that, and now this opportunity is great for me, you know, to tackle. I've looked at the previous recordings, so I've kind of caught up. I didn't have time to read thoroughly CIP 66, 67, and 68. 66, Patrick, I did read kind of, not deeply, but I did. 67 and 68, not so much. I just read the comments. So just excuse me for that. I'll catch up whenever I can. So yeah, I will try to. I think the first activity that kind of we talked about, and I think can be nice, to formalize CIP 27, to maybe expand it from the last meeting with this in a way with updatable royalties and some other fixes that you guys discussed in the previous meetings. Maybe until next meeting I can have a draft, non-GitHub draft, but a draft for us to go through, to present, and then maybe we can move in that direction, if that's okay with everybody.
Welcome.
Yes,
thank you.
Yes. And last week we had these 2 royalty SIPs in discussion. We needed a little more time as different people digested them and formulated their thoughts. And we were going to pick up that conversation this week. So yeah, who has some thoughts and ready to run with that?
Maybe I can start. So last week I set myself 3 tasks to do until this, or last for 2 weeks ago, right? To do. I finished 0 because I started all of them, but I was kind of busy, and I'm basically in the middle. I know exactly like what we have to change in the SIPs, but I'm very glad that Philip is now here, because that means we can, like, maybe Philip, you and I, we can talk about especially SIP 66, since I wrote that one, and then I can explain to you, okay, what was my goal, and then you can come in and basically help us kind of understand. And I think what we have to change and change things accordingly also, maybe. And also what I think is very important is understanding the SIP process more, because like at the moment, the SIP is basically, it's written, and of course there need to be some changes there, yes, but I don't really understand how you get the SIP from being written and put up for a pull request to actually getting merged into the, you know, into the repository. So yeah.
Bill.
I'm also not 100% sure, but from what I see kind of discussed, there are official CIP editors. They are defined in the, either in CIP 1 or in the bottom of the main page. For now, there are 5 of them: Matthias Bencourt, Sebastian, Frederick, and 2 other people. I apologize for not knowing their names. And I think the official process is, if 2 of them approve, the CIP. The CIP gets merged, and then, if I understand correctly, there are different types of CIPs. So let's say CIPs that we are talking about, 27, 66, 67, 68, do not require, let's say, technical changes, maybe by IOG, technical changes of the node software or something like that. They are more informational, standardized CIPs where we just can come together as a community to have an agreement. If we take comparison with CIP 50, where Dr. Liesenfeld, he would like to change the curve of a stake pool saturation curve, that requires a fundamental protocol change. That's not so simple because someone needs to rewrite the software. So I am guessing I am now guessing still, I will do my homework and prepare to see exactly what it means. But if there is enough of us, enough of the community pushing for a standard, we can get it from draft to active stage. I think it should not be such a big deal. It would help, like Patrick said in the previous meetings, let's have a lot of comments. Let's resolve problems on each of these CIPs. 67, 68 Alessandro's may be a bit more technical, so we need to be careful there. But if there's a lot of traction, a lot of talking, it kind of forces, the conversation to be, to be merged.
Oh, great. I left some comments in both of the mentioned CIPs. Do you want me to participate in your discussion, or how do you see that going forward, Philip?
I would definitely like to, I'm not here to moderate, and I would like to hear all the comments, and for sure, feel free. That's the time that I would like to spend most on these meetings, talking concretely about CIPs, see if we can get to an argument, to an agreement, because that would make my job much easier to then formalize it later, whether it's 27 or any of the others where we can leave comments.
Great. Yeah, I'm very positive to participate in discussions at least. So very welcome.
Can you share your comments about what you wrote?
Sure, I can do that. I have a document. I can share it with you. I will post it in the chat, and then we can go through them. And maybe you have some opposite opinions, of course, but there's my comments. I will also bring it up. Can you see my screen?
Yeah. Now we can see your Discord.
Oh, sorry. This. Now.
Yes.
Great. First, for the IAMX CIP, my general comments is regarding that it is very customized around IAMX as a provider for the DIDs. So a general comment from me in this regard is to have a look at how to make this CIP more general so that it incorporates more DID providers than only IAMX. It's basically that some of the fields in this standard namely the verification method and authentication, is not something that necessarily is there for every DID provider. And so the question is if this field should only be, should not be required ones, but should instead be optional fields. Yeah.
Very good question. I'll dig into that. Yeah, very good point, actually.
But I'm not sure, Patrick, you're more familiar with it, I'm sure, but my understanding was that IAMX guys are just following the W3 standard, however developed or not developed it is. Basically, it's the same standard that Atala follows, or let's say Kilt, that they have a project in cross-chain collaboration. We can ask them to do the same thing. Verification and authentication should be, but this is again a good question for the IAMX guys. And if it's their specific verification method, then we would request. I suggest we should request an open sourcing of that method.
Yeah, and one difference between IAMX and, for example, Atala Prism is that IAMX lets you authenticate yourself as a real artist and provide proof of ownership to, for example, Twitter accounts and similar social medias. And this is not a this same notion is not in place for Atala Prism. So I think that we should have this in mind when we do the standard, so that we can have both the IAMX approach and also the Atala Prism approach for how DIDs are solved and distributed to users. So that's, I think, other than that, I think the CIP is moving in the correct direction.
I'm sorry, Peter, is there maybe someone, if you as a host, do you maybe have someone that you should let in?
Nope, there's
No,
no one in the
okay.
waiting room.
Okay,
Sorry.
sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, go ahead. Yep, here he is. Welcome, welcome.
Yes, should I continue?
Yes, please.
Yeah, and just as I started with Philip, these comments, they have been added to the CIP, so it's also in the GitHub. But feel free to include me in discussions if you feel that. So that is my comments on the IAMX for now.
Thank you. A very good comments, I think. Yeah. Then I don't know if we should go forward with the berry CIP. But I think that approach is also a very interesting one, and it has another. It is not a completely similar CIP, but one thing that I noticed, and that has also been commented by many people in the comments,
is that when we need to have more, there is a concept called reference NFTs, and the point in this CIP is that all NFTs should have an accompanying NFT, which is a reference NFT, and this will be very costly for the artists if they for every NFT that is published, they also need to publish another NFT, which is the proof, so to say. So a comment there, and a question is to have a look at instead of having one-to-one relationship between NFT and the reference NFT, and instead have a so-called a collection NFT, so to say, that every NFT in the collection is referencing instead.
Sent, just to ask you, these, because I didn't have time to properly read the CIP. So this reference NFT, does it always travel with the real NFT, or is it locked somewhere?
Yeah.
Else?
Yes. Sorry. The reference NFT is locked in the policy.
In the policy.
Yeah. Yes. In the smart contract. In
the script.
contract.
Okay, because
Yeah,
I'm
sorry.
thinking. Okay, so they are 2 UTXOs. You have to spend 2 times. Yeah. Okay.
From what we understood, you can essentially burn the reference NFT and extract the ADA locked in the contract. The problem is only if you want to basically lock the NFT, create a locked policy. That's when the ADA basically is locked in the contract. And as Sen mentioned, it's also a problem for the artist or the creator in spending the NFTs, but if we think on a really long term, it could also be a problem for the chain itself. Imagine if millions or hundreds of millions of NFTs are minted with reference NFTs, and each of them has 1.5 ADA locked. Of course, like I said, this is only a problem with locked NFTs, but from our discussions with other developers in the space, it seems like their feeling was that it doesn't, like, reference NFTs are a very good idea, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to create necessarily a standard around them, because each collection or each NFT, each developer may have a different use for what he wants to reference in the NFT. So those were some initial thoughts that we gathered.
I think that like having options here is great. I really liked the comment that Alessandro wrote, where you can essentially create like the first token under the policy, which specifies which metadata standard you're using. And that way, you know, your typical NFT project can continue to use the old standard and not, hello? Oh, sorry. And not double their minting costs. But then you also have developers like Alice who want to do, you know, really innovative things with NFTs and push the boundaries, and they can sort of opt in to this new standard, which gives them the programmability that they're looking for. So I think just having backwards compatibility so that we're sort of supporting 2 different standards based on like what you want to do with your NFT project would be good.
I would like to ask everybody a question. It's a bit more, you know, it concerns all the CIPs. there is always this, you know, struggle. What do we put on chain? What do we not put on chain, right? Alessandro, obviously, from, you know, from what I understand, he would like to have things on chain for the simple reason because it's transparent. There's a lot, it's much more secure. There's much less, you know, possibility of manipulation. Of course, we cannot have everything on chain because then the chain would be huge, right? But I would like to, you know, discuss how do we, let's say we do it off chain. Like ideally, in my mind, we would have maybe a Hydra head, or we would have a side chain or a roll up that is specifically, you know, NFT focused, and you can have all the data there, or you can have all the transactions there, and it can be run with a smaller group of validators, and it can be safe enough, secure enough, and it can still share at least sort of a security with layer one, with Cardano. But this is down the line, you know, that's just my thoughts. But everything, I feel like everything we take off chain is inherently either centralized or there's a lot of risks that have to be considered, right? It opens up vulnerabilities. That's just my viewpoint. But of course, there are things that, you know, for backwards compatibility, we have to do off chain. So I just want to hear your opinions on this. What do you guys prefer? Do you like to have things, prefer them off chain, on chain? Where is that balance for everybody here?
I can start.
Yes.
At least from my point, at the most or as much as possible on chain for me, and it has to do with availability and in the CIP that we mentioned, this is going to be used for verification of the NFTs, and then to be able to do the verification, we will need absolute availability of the verification data. So in that regard, I think blockchain is the way to go for verification data.
Yeah, I'm curious if there's a specific type of data you're referring to here, because in my mind, it's really up to the developer. I mean, there's on-chain NFT projects where they store all of the image data on-chain, and those are really cool, but you can only fit so much data on-chain. Like, can you imagine if every NFT project had like 10 megabyte images on-chain? Like it would be nuts.
Yeah. I did not
so-
mean about the, you know, images or books or whatever.
Mm,
I
yeah.
thought maybe, let's say, about the royalties, right? Right now we have the royalty written in the policy, and if you log the policy, that's it, right? So I was thinking in a way, okay, we can always have an open policy, and then you can maybe change it, whatever, or you can reburn and mint the royalty token. But I was thinking, if we can have something off chain, you can have a locked policy that has a, you know, a changeable royalty if you have that part that is off chain, right?
Yeah, I was actually thinking the other day that it would be really cool to do royalties almost in a did, because what you could have is some sort of, you know, you obviously don't want the creator to just be able to change the royalties to whatever they want, whenever they want, because then that would harm the collectors of the NFT project. But perhaps you could have sort of like a centralized company that sort of like does some sort of verification on the did, saying like, oh, we can see that the majority of your collectors are okay with you changing the royalty percentage or the address. Like, let's go and like approve that and add this to your did or something like that. I kind of see where you're going with this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I'm just trying to gauge what is kind of the consensus of the community because I'm always scared, right? Because I'm always scared if we take everything off chain, then why the hell do we need the blockchain, you know, in the end? I mean, the most simple solution that I'm thinking of, you can have, let's say, you can have a doc, you can have anything off chain, and you can have it on your website. Let's say Blake issues 5,000 Blake tokens, right? Blake 1 to 5,000. And Blake says, look, guys, my royalty is 5%, and I'm not changing it, right? You can have a whole document, white paper, everything describing that, and we can just save the hash of that on the chain in your, let's say, policy minting transaction. That gives us at least, you can put that same document on your website and say, okay, download this document, hash it, and you'll get the same value that is in this transaction. And you can get the proof that it has not been changed within some period of time, right? That is something. It's not perfect. Again, there's millions of ways to attack it, blah, blah, blah. But at least there's something. So I was thinking in that way, that's something that connects off-chain, on-chain. But, you know, I still think there's a lot of ways to do that. I also know from previous conversations, when I spoke with Anna Maria and Raresh, I was kind of suggesting, what if we have, you know, Cardano token standard 27 has fixed royalties. Cardano token standard 29 has variable, you know, policies, variable royalties, you know. Would that make sense? You know, would the community react poorly if you have another type of token, you know, like ERC 721, ERC 1155, or whatever? Would that be a problem? Is that what we want? Then Patrick said, yeah, well, then every project can mint their own, you know, standard and create their own. Then it doesn't make sense. So I know I asked a lot of questions. I'm sorry if I confused more than gave clarity. I just wanted to hear your opinion on this.
Yeah, and I think in many regards you have talked about what I also tried. I'm sorry, Blake. When I said as much as possible, I did not mean every every image file or every book or.
Yeah, I got
So,
you. I
yeah,
got you.
so it's most definitely, as Philip says, that we put the verifiable hashes on chain, and then we are free to put the large files off chain on web servers. But yeah, so great. Thanks, Philip.
Yes, thank you. We have also have a lot of community members rich in knowledge here with us who happen to also be part of the Cardano entities. Hello, all of you with your cameras off. Feel free to contribute. And bye, Patrick.
Yeah, also about this, you know, storage of files, you know, IPFS is, I think, most widely used. Then I saw Arweave used, then I saw Filecoin used. I would also standardize this. This can also be a part of CIP 27, maybe at some point, maybe now. I would also maybe try to use it. Maybe Jeremy or Tyler can or Pierre can talk about this. How about we use this standard to as a marketing ploy to connect to other, you know, chains or services? Like, how about we approach Arweave and say, hey guys, we really like your service. We want to include you in the CIP. Can we get some promotion? Can we get some marketing? Can we get some, you know, whatever? We can do the same thing for Filecoin. We can do for SIA coin. We can do, there are like 50 of those. It's just we can use that as just a line, you know, okay, storage Arweave ID this, storage Filecoin ID this, you know, it's simple, but it can be used. It can be used, doesn't have to be used, but it can be used as for Cardano as an ecosystem can use it to connect to maybe other ecosystems. I don't know if that makes sense.
I joined the call kind of late, but I'm a bit curious what our goal is to get out of this meeting. Are we trying to like advance the CIPs to like another level of like, you know, we're all on the same page? I just kind of want to clarify that because we can start talking about Filecoin and other file storage systems, but I'm not sure if that was the purpose of this call.
Yeah, purpose of the call was the SIP discussion continuation from last week. You were late. We had a couple people share their comments about that. If you have any from that from the last 2 weeks in your research and study, that'd be awesome if you could, yeah, jump in, redirect that direction for sure. Yeah, thank you.
Cool.
This is
Yeah. So
exploration. Go ahead.
thanks. So I left some comments on the new metadata standard. You know, like I was saying earlier, I think the biggest thing here is just allowing the creator of an NFT project to choose which standard they want to use. And the reason why I say that is because there's some obvious trade-offs with this new standard, right? Like you're doubling your minting costs, for example. It's also a lot more complexity for developers to sort of manage, because now you have like 2 NFTs, you have to look up where the metadata is, etc. So I think just allowing the developer to choose whether they want like a more expensive, more complicated mint, but then they get programmability with it, or if they just want to do a standard NFT drop, keep it simple. Like I really think this should be up to the developer. Besides that, I don't have too many comments on the proposal.
Blake, do you think it would be something similar to kind of like how Ethereum has multiple standards for NFTs?
Yeah,
Like have
potentially.
multiple standards, and then allow the actual creator to choose which standard they want to implement.
Yeah, potentially. And we, I like what the person was saying earlier, that like, you know, we shouldn't allow every creator to just make a new metadata standard for what they want to do. So I think it is important to make sure we don't end up having like 20 different standards that all need to be supported. But it sounds like this one is like significantly different, like substantially different from the original proposal. And so potentially maintaining like 2 different standards could make sense. I see Jeremy has his hand raised.
Thank you, Blake. Can you hear me okay? So I don't know if my microphone is on.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
All right.
Take it away.
So I was in a couple conversations about the new proposed metadata standard. And one of the, I think it would be really nice to see is if there could be kind of a general summary that says, here are the claims that are being made for the new standard. So for example, right now, there's no programmability of metadata, and metadata cannot be updated. And then there's a third claim, but I don't know what it is. So is that claim true or false? And then what are the kind of general pros and what are the general cons of this new standard? And what use cases would this be really good for? And from what I have seen is that with reference scripts coming out, having this new standard is kind of tailored towards Plutus applications, to where when you put the NFT or when you lock it, the reference NFT through a smart contract, there will be some sort of systems to update the metadata over time for that said NFT. Now, if that's the actual use case that it's going to do, I believe that this can already be done right now through transaction metadata. And it's more about the ecosystem of wallets and explorers pointing to a certain version of metadata, whether that be the minting transaction metadata or a new updated version, but it just has to be an authenticated version. So it's a bit confusing on if enough people have looked at this to actually assess if the functionality already exists or if there's some really good improvement that would merit this being done. So that's kind of my first point, just to see if anyone has feedback on that and what they think on this. And also included in that is when you're locking these NFTs, we have a time locking feature. So why is it that this is being locked forever? As one of the notable risks currently is that when you lock the NFTs, you're also having to lock up ADA with every time you do that. So one person's comment was, okay, if you think about the growth of the ecosystem and you think about the growth of NFTs, and if everyone is using this standard, how much ADA will be locked over time? And what's the negative implications of that on the ecosystem? So I'm not sure if anyone's looked at that. I see Blake has written something, but I'm not at my desk to read it.
Yeah, Blake shared the CIP 25 with the, but go ahead, Blake.
Oh, I was going to say I mostly agree with what Jeremy said. It's really nice for these CIPs to have like a very high level like overview of like what we're trying to accomplish. I think if you look at the README for CIP 68, I just shared it in the chat. Alice has some comments. And I feel like we're mostly on the same page now regarding like the pros and cons of this standard. Like it's more expensive, it's more complicated, but it gives you programmability and makes it easier to update the metadata. So I'm not sure like where we stand. Like, do we want to keep discussing 68? Do we want to discuss 69? Like what, what do you guys want to do in this call?
I mean, before we were discussing like 27, 66, 67, 68. We can maybe stick to that. That's plenty. I don't even know about 69. Is that a new one?
Oh, sorry, my bad. I meant 67.
Someone caught the number 69.
There's
That one's
too many
gonna be
CIPs.
that one's gonna be popular.
Like one question I have for the group is, so I get why Alessandro wants this. You know, he's trying to push the boundaries once again, like get some more programmability. Is the only way to do this with reference NFTs? Like, is there no way we could potentially like change, I don't know, how Plutus validation works so that automatically gets the metadata associated with an NFT? Or is that like have we thought about any alternative approaches to accomplish the same goal of introducing the metadata into the validator context?
Now, I'm not 100% sure. Maybe Jeremy can say, but I believe that now he's trying to put the data in the datum because datum can now be referenced and read by a Plutus script, but the NFT metadata cannot. If I'm not 100% sure. Please don't take that for granted.
I
Jeremy,
think...
maybe you have.
Sant and Tyler came off mute right after your question, Blake,
Okay.
too. So there's other people with thoughts.
Yeah, it's correct as you say, Philip. The datum is available for the Plutus contracts, while the metadata is not.
So is there any reason why the metadata is not available?
I am sure there is, but I don't know it.
I mean, my second question to that would be, then how do you update the metadata if you're adding the datum, which is probably not going to be human readable?
No, it's not.
Where does that come into play? So then where does it link back to evolving the NFT metadata on chain?
That is a great question.
I believe what was imagined was you put something in the datum, the script you know, does something, triggers an event, and then off-chain, you know, some system builds a transaction with the policy key that updates the metadata of the NFT. That's how I imagine it. But again, maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, yeah, no, I think Philip's right. You would just make a new transaction with a new datum, and then the new datum would be the new metadata for that.
No, I don't think the new datum could
Oh.
be the new metadata, because the no, actually, maybe Jeremy, the Pluto script can build a minting transaction that burns the old NFT with old metadata, creates the new one with new metadata. But again, I have to read properly the CIP.
I mean, I think that one of the steps that's actually missing here is an example. So normally when we're talking about application standards, when you are pushing this out, you will then cite people who are following this approach, because it's only when you have a critical mass that you say, okay, we should make this into an ecosystem standard. So if it's just for Sandro's project, outside of the Vassal hard fork, I don't know what's actually stopping him from implementing this for his project and letting people take the time to look at this and say if that's something they want to do or not. I mean, some of the variables that just aren't here is, you know, reference scripts and practice. Go ahead, Blake.
I think like the reason why he's making a CIP from this is like this requires support both from wallets as well as dApps, right? Because if you have like reference NFTs, like the wallets have to hide those, and then dApps need to know like where to get the new metadata. So I actually think it makes sense to make this a CIP. I don't know if anyone in the ecosystem has a use for this right now besides Alice. But I mean, I think he brings up some good points in the proposal. Like this, if we go through with this standard, it allows you to do like new things that you can't do right now because you can't bring metadata into a Plutus validator.
But it's also such a new concept, you know, we don't even have this on mainnet yet, so, you know, people cannot.
Yeah, fair enough. I do agree with what Jeremy said about, oh, what was it? Like examples, that would be really nice. Like, here's something that we can do that we couldn't do before, or like, here's how you would, yeah, we should write that.
We should comment that on the CIP. We want examples.
Yes. Great.
Do it.
So as far as reference NFTs, we had some discussions with the smart contract developer for DripDopz and Project Newman. What he said is that he's been using reference NFTs for a while now, but he just doesn't see the point in making a standard out of it because, like I said earlier, each project will need to reference different data in the reference NFT. So that's why in his view, it should be an open decision of the developer, not necessarily following a standard for that. And to your comment, Blake, that the wallets would need to hide the NFT, wouldn't those be in the minting contract anyway? So not in the end user's wallet. So there shouldn't be a need to.
Oh, is there no way to take them off the contract?
I think that it is, but then it defeats the purpose. I think the idea is to have the reference NFT locked into the smart contract, and then you have your own NFT, or vice versa. I'm not sure. No, actually, the reference.
Yeah, when you say it's locked in the contract, is this like the minting script?
No, I would say it's the smart contract script that does this logic.
Okay. It's a little bit beyond my level of understanding, but
But I
think-
see this
Get it.
this CIP is actually the most contentious one among all. You know, there are some issues and unsatisfactions with it. So I think we should just keep commenting. I'm sure Alessandro will eventually give some examples, things like that, and we'll see where it goes.
Oh, I didn't even realize it's almost 10. Do you guys want to discuss 67? Did we discuss that one yet?
Yeah, we can go. You guys can go ahead and discuss 67 and continue on after the top of the hour. I will hop off. I have town hall responsibilities, but I'll leave hosting to Anne Marie and Rares and let you guys keep going. So
I can stay for another 30 minutes if someone wants.
Okay. I have a meeting with Pierre after, so Pierre, I'm not sure what you want to do.
Yeah, you have to go, Blake.
now
Okay.
Pierre's right here. You can say.
Well, everybody else can leave.
I am.
I mean, the only kind of follow-up question I would have on that is it too crazy of an idea to think of a concept called Cardano Labs, where we say, hey, there's some CIPs that are out of this world. They're super innovative, but it's really hard to test them individually. What we need is the following ecosystem players to kind of agree to have some deployments. And we get then, NFT projects, wallets, and Explorer, maybe a minting tool would kind of be the defined ecosystem, and say, okay, we want to test out, CIP 68. And if there's other CIPs, we'll agree that this is the lab environment where we're just testing things and seeing how it works. Would that be something you think that people might want to, participate in as a way of doing ecosystem collaboration?
I mean, that sounds really cool. I think that's what kind of the DeFi Alliance, I think, does something similar. I mean, they all have their own devnets and, things that they kind of have to test out. So I think, bye, Peter. I think that would be great. It's just about, will we get the largest players to participate? It can also be done on testnet with existing architecture.
Well, yeah, but it seems from what Jeremy is proposing that it would be an official space, and I'm sure if it's backed by the Cardano Foundation, larger players, as you said, would be willing to participate. And we also think it's a really cool suggestion. Would be helpful to actually get a sense of the proposed changes in a production environment, so to speak, before they're out there to the community to use.
Do we not already do this with, for example, the CIPs involved in the Vassal hard fork? Like they're available on testnet before we merge to main.
Yes. I just think again, Jeremy had a little bit more official, but Jeremy, you can say, sorry to interrupt you.
I mean, those CIPs is more for, I would call it infrastructure updates or upgrades, right? And so they also have a 750 person team who's doing that testing, right? What they're not testing is a reference NFT to go through a reference script and to see what happens if we want to upgrade the NFT metadata. And there's a lot of other use cases, right, that may not be thought of, that is born out of the community, for the community. And so if there was a nice place that this could be done, I would, I would think like through the NFT guild, that would be really cool to see that kind of be delivered. And yeah, happy to give a little stamp of approval for a Cardano Labs or NFT Labs. Sounds like there's because you could test a lot of stuff, right? But it's all about like, a mini hackathon style type thing, right?
Yeah.
To where
I actually
let's crush something.
Yeah, I like that idea. I wonder, rather than like, I don't want to have too many groups because then things get lost. Maybe we could just make this part of the NFT guild.
I think that's a good discussion point to not decide on. As we've learned from this conversation, discussion is good. So, if enough people think that's good to do, then maybe that can be a decision in the following meeting or 2 meetings from now, and then see what to do to make that come to life. But that's, I'll leave that in your all's hands for deciding that.
Okay. I think I gotta drop soon because me and Pierre have a call. One thing I wanted to ask the group before dropping was, what are people's thoughts on CIP 67? I just briefly read the description. It seems like it's just changing how we encode asset names. Have people read through this? Do we have any thoughts on it? I'll send a link.
I said in the beginning I didn't really catch up with 67 and 68.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, no, it's my fault too. Yeah. Okay, we can bookmark this and discuss it next week then. Cool. I'm gonna drop, but yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you. I'm also dropping probably Pierre as well. Very much appreciate it, Philip.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Darlisa, we didn't hear anything from you. Okay. You need to drop as well.
Okay. Thanks, guys.